My heart was pounding as I watched him walk across that glittering stage, the spotlight following his every step. The entire ballroom fell silent. 800 of the city's most powerful people all focused on one man. The same man whose trembling hand I had guided across the Fifth Avenue just 6 hours earlier. The same man I thought was just another lost soul in need of help. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer's voice boomed through the crystal chandeliers, "please welcome our host and benefactor, the man whose foundation has donated over $50 million to our keys." How could I have known? Before we get into it, hit like, subscribe, and leave me a comment telling me about a time you helped a stranger without expecting anything in return. Your support really helps me share more stories like this one, and I love reading about your acts of kindness. The crosswalk signal was broken, flashing an erratic amber that meant nothing to anyone. Rush hour in Manhattan, a symphony of honking horns, diesel fumes, and 8 million people trying to get somewhere 5 minutes ago. I was one of them, clutching my portfolio bag and checking my phone for the third time. The interview was in 20 minutes, and this was my shot. 6 months of unemployment, 3 maxed-out credit cards, and a stack of rejection letters had led me to this moment. That's when I saw him. He stood at the corner of 5th Avenue and 47th Street, white cane extended, head tilted slightly as if trying to decode the chaos around him. His navy coat was well-tailored but wrinkled, his gray hair disheveled by the October wind. What struck me most was how still he was in the middle of all that motion, like a lighthouse surrounded by crashing waves. The light changed to green, and the crowd surged forward. He took a tentative step, then another, his cane sweeping in small arcs. A taxi honked aggressively as it turned, and he flinched, stepping back onto the curb. The businessman next to me muttered something about blocking traffic and pushed past. I looked at my phone again. 18 minutes. The man tried once more, his cane finding the edge of the crosswalk. Another horn blared. He retreated again, and I could see his shoulders slump slightly. In that moment, I saw my grandfather, the way he'd looked after his stroke, proud but vulnerable, trying to navigate a world that had suddenly become foreign. My interview could wait. Let me back up and tell you why that 20-minute window mattered so much to me. My name is Sarah, and 6 months earlier, I'd been laid off from my marketing job at a tech startup. Not because I was bad at it, the company just ran out of funding, like so many others in 2023. "It's not personal," my boss had said, "but when you're staring at your empty bank account at 2 a.m., everything feels personal." I'd burned through my savings by month 3. By month 4, I was rationing ramen noodles and walking everywhere to save subway fare. My studio apartment in Queens, the one I'd been so proud to afford on my own, suddenly felt like a prison cell with a $1,800 monthly sentence. The job I was rushing to interview for wasn't even in my field. It was an administrative assistant position at Morrison & Associates, a mid-tier consulting firm in Midtown. The salary was $20,000 less than what I'd made before, but it came with health insurance and the promise of regular paychecks. At this point, I would have taken a job counting paper clips, if it meant I could sleep without anxiety clawing at my chest. I'd prepared for this interview like it was the SATs. I'd researched every partner at the firm, memorized their client list, and practiced answering questions in front of my bathroom mirror until my reflection looked as tired as I felt. My one good interview suit, a charcoal gray number I'd bought for my first job out of college, was pressed and hanging on my closet door like a superhero costume waiting for its moment. The morning had already been a disaster. My alarm didn't go off because I'd forgotten to charge my phone overnight. I'd spilled coffee on my first shirt choice and had to change. The subway was delayed because of signal problems, which in New York means anything from a technical glitch to someone's emotional breakdown on the tracks. But here's what really made this interview crucial. It wasn't just about me anymore. 3 weeks earlier, I'd gotten a call from my mom in Ohio. Dad's diabetes had gotten worse, and they were struggling with the medical bills. Mom had always been proud, too proud to ask for help, but I could hear the fear in her voice when she mentioned they might have to sell the house. The house where I'd grown up, where Dad had built me a treehouse in the backyard oak, where Mom still kept my childhood bedroom exactly as I'd left it. "We'll figure it out, sweetheart," she'd said, but I knew what that meant. It meant Dad would start skipping his medications to save money. It meant Mom would take on extra shifts at the diner, even though her arthritis made standing for long periods agony. I'd promised them I'd send money as soon as I got back on my feet. The problem was, I wasn't just on my feet, I was flat on my back staring at a ceiling that seemed to get lower every day. This job at Morrison & Associates was my lifeline, not just for me, but for the two people who had sacrificed everything to give me a shot at something better. The irony wasn't lost on me that in trying to help them, I'd first have to help myself. Standing at that corner, watching this stranger struggle with something as simple as crossing a street, I felt the weight of all those expectations. My parents needed me to be successful, practical, focused. They needed me to make smart choices. But sometimes the smartest choice your head can make isn't the one your heart demands. I walked over to him, my heels clicking against the concrete. Up close, I could see the details I'd missed from a distance. His hands were weathered but clean, with calluses that spoke of a life that hadn't always been easy. There was a small tear in his coat's left sleeve, carefully mended with thread that almost, but not quite, matched the original fabric. His shoes were leather, well-made but worn, the kind that lasts for decades if you take care of them. "Excuse me," I said softly, not wanting to startle him. "Are you trying to cross the street?" He turned toward my voice, and I got my first real look at his face. His eyes were a striking blue-gray, but they held that particular unfocused quality I recognized from my grandfather's later years. Deep lines etched the corners, laugh lines, I thought, though he wasn't smiling now. There was something dignified about his bearing, even in his obvious frustration. "Yes," he said, and his voice surprised me. It was cultured, educated, with just a hint of an accent I couldn't place. British, maybe, or someone who'd spent time abroad. "I'm trying to get to the Meridian building. I know it's just across the street, but—" He gestured helplessly at the chaos of traffic around us. The Meridian building, I knew it well, a gleaming tower of glass and steel that housed some of the city's most exclusive offices. It was also exactly 4 blocks past Morrison & Associates, in the direction I needed to go anyway. "I can help you with that," I said. "I'm heading that way myself." Relief flooded his features, and for a moment, the dignified mask slipped. "Thank you," he said, and there was something raw in those 2 words. "I'm usually much better at this. I've been navigating the city on my own for 15 years, but today—" He shook his head. "The construction noise is throwing off my audio cues, and this broken signal light isn't helping." I glanced around and noticed what he meant. There was a jackhammer working on the sidewalk half a block down, its rhythmic pounding echoing off the buildings. A delivery truck was idling nearby, its diesel engine adding to the cacophony. For someone who relied on sound to navigate, it must have been like trying to read in a strobe light. "I'm Sarah, by the way," I said, extending my hand before realizing the absurdity of the gesture. But he seemed to sense it anyway and reached out. His handshake was firm, confident. "William," he replied. "William Harrison." Something about the way he said his name made me think he was used to it meaning something to people. But it didn't ring any bells for me, so I just smiled, another useless gesture, and prepared to guide him across. "The light's about to change," I said. "I'll stay on your right side, okay? Just hold onto my elbow lightly, and I'll let you know about any obstacles." As we waited for the signal, I noticed other small details. His watch was expensive looking, a slim gold piece that caught the afternoon light. His wedding ring was a simple platinum band, worn smooth with years of wear. Despite his obvious wealth, or former wealth, I corrected myself, there was something humble about him, something that spoke of genuine gratitude rather than entitlement. The light changed, and we stepped into the street together. "Okay," I murmured. "We're clear for about 20 feet. Then there's a slight dip where they've been doing road work." He nodded, trusting me completely as we navigated the urban obstacle course. In that moment, I felt the profound responsibility of being someone's eyes, someone's safety net in a world that showed no mercy to vulnerability. "Pothole coming up on your left," I warned as we made our way across Fifth Avenue. William adjusted his steps smoothly, his cane barely missing the edge of the crater that the city had been promising to fix for months. "You're very good at this, son," he said as we reached the median strip. "Have you done this before?" "My grandfather," I explained, pausing as a bus rumbled past, its brakes hissing like an angry snake. He lost most of his sight after a stroke. I used to walk with him to the grocery store every week. Used to? He passed away 2 years ago. The words still caught in my throat sometimes. But he taught me that everyone deserves to move through the world with dignity. William was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke again, his voice was softer. He sounds like a wise man. The second half of the crossing was trickier. A bike messenger cut too close, forcing us to step back slightly. William's grip on my elbow tightened, but he didn't panic. "Sorry," I said. "Some people forget that the world doesn't revolve around their delivery schedule." "Don't apologize for other people's thoughtlessness," William said with a slight smile. "You're doing perfectly." We made it to the other side, but our journey was far from over. The sidewalk was crowded with lunch-hour pedestrians, street vendors, and the usual collection of New York characters. A hot dog cart had positioned itself right in our path, forcing us to navigate around the line of customers. "Sharp right here," I guided him. "There's a vendor cart." "Smells good," William commented, and I realized he was right. The aroma of grilled onions and sauerkraut cut through the usual city scents of exhaust and concrete. "Are you hungry?" I asked impulsively. "I mean, do you have time before your appointment?" He paused, considering. "I have a few minutes. Are you suggesting we stop?" I checked my phone. 12 minutes until my interview. It would be cutting it close, but something about his lonely dignity made me want to extend this moment. "Only if you want to." "I'd like that," he said, and his smile was genuine this time. We ordered 2 hot dogs. My treat, I insisted, despite my dwindling cash reserves. William protested, but I was firm. "You can get the next one," I said, not thinking about the implications of suggesting a next time. We found a small space near a building's entrance to eat. William handled his hot dog with practiced ease, and I realized he'd probably developed techniques for eating in public over the years. Still, I positioned myself slightly to shield him from the curious glances of passers-by. "So, what takes you to the Meridian building?" I asked between bites. His expression grew more serious. "A meeting that's been in the works for months. Something I've been putting off, actually, but it can't wait any longer." There was weight in his words, a gravity that suggested this wasn't just any business meeting. "Important?" I asked. "Life-changing," he said simply. "For a lot of people." We finished eating in comfortable silence, watching, or in his case listening to, the ebb and flow of city life around us. A street musician was playing violin nearby, the melody weaving through the urban symphony. William tilted his head toward the music, a peaceful expression crossing his face. "That's beautiful," he murmured. "He's really talented," I agreed, watching the young man's fingers dance across the strings. "Music is one of the things I miss least about losing my sight," William said. "It was always about listening anyway." Something in the way he said it made me think he knew more about music than casual appreciation. The walk to the Meridian building took another 8 minutes. My phone kept buzzing with notifications, probably the interviewer wondering where I was. I ignored it, focusing instead on guiding William through the increasingly crowded sidewalks as we moved deeper into Midtown's business district. "Left turn ahead," I said as we approached the building. "There's a revolving door, but there's also a regular entrance about 10 feet to the right." "The regular door would be easier," William agreed. As we approached the entrance, I could see the building's impressive lobby through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and the kind of security desk that probably cost more than my monthly rent. This wasn't just any office building, this was where serious money lived and worked. "Here we are," I announced as we reached the entrance. A doorman in a crisp uniform opened the glass door for us, nodding respectfully at William. "Thank you, Marcus," William said, and I was surprised he knew the doorman's name. "Good afternoon, Mr. Harrison," Marcus replied. "They're expecting you upstairs." Inside the lobby, William turned to me, extending his hand once more. This time I took it without hesitation. "Sarah," he said, "I cannot thank you enough. You've been extraordinarily kind, and I know you had somewhere important to be." My phone buzzed again. I pulled it out and saw 3 missed calls and 2 text messages. The most recent text made my stomach drop. Ms. Rodriguez, we've moved your interview to 3 p.m. due to scheduling conflicts. Please confirm receipt. It was 2:47 p.m. Oh no, I breathed, the words escaping before I could stop them. What's wrong? William asked, genuine concern in his voice. I wanted to lie, to tell him everything was fine, but the disappointment was too fresh, too overwhelming. I missed my interview, I said quietly. I mean, they rescheduled it, but I can't get there in time now. It was for a job I really needed. The silence stretched between us. I felt foolish for admitting it, for making him feel responsible for my poor time management. This was my choice, my decision to help. He didn't owe me anything. What kind of job? He asked gently. Administrative assistant at Morrison & Associates. It's not glamorous, but... I shrugged, trying to keep the desperation out of my voice. It's steady work. William was quiet for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. Sarah, would you mind if I asked you something personal? Sure. Why did you help me today? Really, you could have walked past like everyone else did. The question caught me off guard. I thought about my grandfather, about my parents struggling with medical bills, about all the times I'd felt invisible and alone in this city. Because everyone deserves kindness, I said finally, and because maybe the world would be a little better if we all stopped rushing past each other's struggles. He nodded slowly, as if my answer confirmed something he'd been wondering about. Sarah, I'd like to give you my card. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a simple white business card. If you ever need anything, a reference, a recommendation, anything at all, please don't hesitate to call. I took the card, glancing at it quickly. William Harrison, Harrison Foundation, was all it said, along with a phone number. Thank you, I said, though I wasn't sure what a foundation could do for someone with my skill set. That's very generous. It's the least I can do, he said. And Sarah, don't give up hope about that job. Sometimes things work out in ways we don't expect. As I walked back toward the subway, his card tucked safely in my purse, I had no idea how prophetic those words would prove to be. That evening, I was ready to drown my sorrows in a pint of Ben & Jerry's and a Netflix binge when my phone rang. It was my college roommate, Jessica, calling from her apartment on the Upper East Side. Sarah, I know this is last minute, but I have an extra ticket to this charity gala tonight. My date bailed, and I hate going to these things alone. Please say you'll come with me. I looked down at my pajama pants and the spoon in my hand. Jess, I'm not really in a socializing mood. Today was... It's for children's literacy, she interrupted. And there's going to be an open bar and incredible food. Come on, when's the last time you did something fancy? Besides, you need to get out of your apartment. She wasn't wrong. My studio had started to feel like a depression cave, complete with empty takeout containers and a growing pile of rejection letters. Maybe a night out would help me forget about the disaster that was today. I don't have anything to wear to a charity gala, I protested weakly. You can borrow my black cocktail dress. We're the same size. I'll come pick you up in an hour. 2 hours later, I found myself in the ballroom of the Plaza Hotel, feeling like a fraud in Jessica's designer dress and borrowed jewelry. The room was a vision of old New York elegance. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in white linens, and the city's elite mingled with champagne flutes and practiced smiles. This is incredible, I whispered to Jessica as we made our way through the crowd. How much do tickets to these things cost? More than your rent, she replied cheerfully. But my company bought a table, corporate networking and all that. I felt completely out of place among the designer gowns and Rolex watches. These were people who probably spent more on a single dinner than I'd spent on groceries in the past month. But the cause was good, the Harrison Foundation's annual literacy gala, according to the programs scattered on each table. Harrison Foundation. The name tickled something in the back of my mind, but I couldn't place it. We found our table and settled in. The first course arrived, some kind of delicate fish that probably had a French name I couldn't pronounce. I was trying to figure out which fork to use when the lights dimmed and a spotlight illuminated the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, the master of ceremonies announced, please welcome the founder and president of the Harrison Foundation, the man whose vision has brought literacy programs to over 200 schools across the country, and whose personal donation tonight will fund 10 new libraries in underserved communities. My heart stopped. Please join me in welcoming William Harrison. The same man I'd guided across Fifth Avenue just 8 hours earlier walked confidently onto the stage. Gone was the wrinkled coat and disheveled appearance. He wore an impeccably tailored tuxedo, his silver hair perfectly styled, and he moved with the assured grace of someone completely comfortable in the spotlight. But it was definitely him. I'd recognize that dignified bearing anywhere, the way he held his head slightly tilted when listening, the gentle smile that transformed his entire face. William Harrison wasn't just some lost stranger I'd helped cross the street. He was a billionaire philanthropist, and I was watching him command a room full of New York's most powerful people like he owned the place. Which, given the foundation's name on every program and banner, he basically did. My champagne glass trembled in my hand as William began to speak. His voice carried easily through the ballroom's acoustics, that same cultured tone I'd heard on the street corner, but now amplified and commanding the attention of 800 people. 15 years ago, he began, I lost my sight in a car accident. I thought my life was over. I was a successful businessman, used to controlling every aspect of my world, and suddenly I couldn't even cross a street safely. The room was completely silent except for the soft clink of silverware as servers quietly cleared plates. I learned something profound in those early days of blindness, William continued. I learned about the extraordinary kindness of strangers, the people who would stop their busy lives to help someone they'd never met before and would likely never see again. My throat felt tight. Jessica leaned over and whispered, Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I discovered that true wealth isn't measured in bank accounts or stock portfolios, William said, his voice growing stronger. It's measured in moments of human connection, in the willingness to put someone else's needs before your own deadlines, your own appointments, your own pressing concerns. He paused, seeming to look directly into the audience despite his blindness. Today, I was reminded of this lesson in the most beautiful way. A young woman, someone rushing to an important job interview, stopped to help me navigate the chaos of Manhattan traffic. She bought me lunch with money I suspect she could ill afford. She missed her interview because she prioritized my safety over her own pressing needs. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure Jessica could hear it. Several people at nearby tables were dabbing their eyes with napkins. Sarah Rodriguez, William said, and I nearly dropped my glass. If you're out there somewhere, I want you to know that your kindness today reminded me why I started this foundation. It reminded me that education and literacy programs matter not just because they teach reading and writing, but because they teach empathy. They teach us to see beyond our own immediate needs. Jessica grabbed my arm. Sarah, did he just... That young woman embodied everything we hope to instill in the next generation, William continued. Compassion, selflessness, and the courage to do the right thing, even when it costs us something precious. The spotlight suddenly swept across the audience, and I instinctively ducked, but it was too late. William was speaking again, his voice filled with warmth. Sarah, I know you're here tonight. Marcus, my doorman, told me he saw you arrive with the Morrison and Associates group. Would you please stand up? The entire ballroom turned to look in our direction. Jessica was staring at me with her mouth open. I felt exposed, terrified, but also strangely moved by the genuine emotion in William's voice. Slowly, on shaking legs, I stood up. Ladies and gentlemen, William said, his smile radiant even from across the crowded ballroom. The young woman who reminded me today that the most important things in life can't be scheduled or planned. They happen when we choose to pay attention to each other. The applause started slowly, then built into a thunderous ovation. People were standing, clapping, some wiping away tears. I felt like I was in a dream, caught between the surreal glamour of the moment and the simple memory of sharing a hot dog with a lonely man on a busy street corner. Sarah, William called out over the applause, would you join me at the head table? I believe we have some unfinished business to discuss. The crowd parted as I made my way toward the stage, my borrowed heels clicking against the marble floor, my heart full of possibilities I'd never dared to imagine. That night changed everything. William didn't just offer me a job, he offered me a purpose. The Harrison Foundation needed someone to head their new community outreach program, someone who understood what it meant to struggle, to worry about bills and family and finding your place in an indifferent world, someone who knew that kindness wasn't a luxury but a necessity. The salary was more than I'd ever dreamed of making, but that wasn't what made me cry happy tears in the Plaza Hotel bathroom 20 minutes later. It was the way William had looked at me when he said, "Sarah, I don't need someone who's perfect. I need someone who's human." 6 months later, I was able to send my parents enough money to cover Dad's medications and keep their house. 6 months after that, our foundation opened its 15th new library, this one in Queens, not far from my old studio apartment. But here's what I learned that October day, standing at a broken crosswalk signal with a stranger who needed help. The universe has a way of watching how we treat each other when we think no one is looking. The kindness we show in small moments, when we're rushed, when we're stressed, when helping someone else might cost us something important, that's when our character is truly revealed. I could have walked past William that day. I had every reason to. I was broke, desperate, and running late for the interview that was supposed to save my life. But my grandfather's voice echoed in my head. Everyone deserves to move through the world with dignity. The job interview I missed? Morrison and Associates called me the next week. They'd heard about the gala, about William's speech, and they wanted to offer me a position, not as an administrative assistant, but as their new director of corporate social responsibility, at a salary that made my foundation job look modest by comparison. I turned them down because I'd learned something that October afternoon that no paycheck could teach me. Sometimes the most important appointments we'll ever have aren't the ones we schedule. They're the ones that happen when we stop rushing past each other's struggles and remember that we're all just people trying to find our way. William and I still have lunch sometimes, usually at that same hot dog cart on Fifth Avenue. He insists on paying now, but I always bring the napkins. And sometimes when the city gets too loud and too fast and too indifferent, we both remember that the most powerful force in the world isn't money or influence or success. It's the simple decision to stop and help someone cross the street.